We've seen many great negotiators in history. We've looked at Genghis Khan and Temujin. We examined how Napoleon and Frederick the Great competed in Europe. We analyzed how Muhammad Ali saved America, and so much more. But today, let's look at one of the greatest stories of negotiating from strength in all of history. This is the story of Ching Shih, China, the pirate queen who built a parallel state and negotiated with the Chinese emperor. Imagine being born into poverty, getting kidnapped and sold into slavery, managing to escape, only to find yourself destitute and alone in a strange city. Life seems like one big obstacle after another. Then you meet the love of your life and finally things start looking up. You get married, have a kid, and even manage to build a decent business selling fake Chinese currency, but then suddenly your husband dies, leaving you to fend for yourself and protect your young child. And I'm not talking about just some ordinary guy here. I'm talking about the biggest counterfeiter in China. Suddenly, you're targeted by the triads, local gangs, and the corrupt officials who turned a blind eye to your husband's activities. Even your in-laws, the very people who once welcomed you into the family, now disowned you to protect themselves. At that point, most people would give up hope. They'd think to themselves, it's just one more setback, one more bad hand dealt by fate. Why even try? But this woman didn't think that way. Her name was Ching Shih, and she had a 7-year-old son named Lung. And instead of giving up, she used every skill and resource she had to turn the tables and become one of the most powerful figures in history. You see, Ching Shih was no ordinary woman. She was a former opera singer with an entrepreneurial spirit and a whole lot of grit. While most women might have felt overwhelmed and defeated, she recognized an opportunity. With her late husband's connections, she could keep the cash flow going. However, doing so meant betraying her husband's old partners, the very people who now threatened her and her son. But Ching Shih wasn't the type to back down from a challenge. She was willing to go against everyone, including her own father-in-law, if that's what it took to protect her family. She might have been outnumbered and outgunned, but she wasn't outfoxed. Using her quick wit and charm, she managed to secure an alliance with a rival gang. Suddenly, she found herself at the center of a network that printed counterfeit cash and smuggled opium. And that's when things took a wild turn. The corrupt commissioner of the Imperial Maritime Customs, eager to expand his fortune, tried to recruit her into a smuggling ring. But when he crossed a line and threatened her son, Ching Shih's maternal instincts kicked in, and she unleashed her fury. In a shocking turn of events, she led a rebellion that left the commissioner and his men dead. What followed was nothing short of a bloodbath. She single-handedly wiped out the remaining members of the triads, those very gangs that once sought her out for protection. Among her victims was the official representative of her father-in-law, the man who had disinherited her. By the end of it, there wasn't a single member of the triads left standing. She had shown everyone around her just how ruthless she could be. Now here's where Ching Shih's story becomes one of the greatest examples of negotiating from strength in all of history. After several humiliating defeats, the Chinese government realized they had a problem that couldn't be solved with force. They were dealing with someone who had built a parallel state that was actually more effective than their own government in large parts of southern China. The pirate queen who controlled an entire navy bigger than some countries, Ching Shih, China. So they decided to try negotiation. But here's where Ching Shih showed just how brilliant she really was. She didn't negotiate like someone asking for mercy. She negotiated like the head of a sovereign nation. Picture this. You're sitting across from representatives of one of the most powerful empires in world history, and you're a woman who started as a courtesan. Most people would take whatever deal was offered and count themselves lucky. But Ching Shih understood something fundamental about negotiation that most people miss. The person who needs the deal least has the most power. The negotiations took months because she refused to be treated like a criminal asking for forgiveness. She presented herself as the leader of a legitimate power that deserved respect. She had specific demands about how her people would be treated, what ranks they would receive, and what kind of autonomy she would maintain. And here's the incredible part. She got almost everything she asked for. In 1810, she signed a treaty that was essentially a merger between her pirate confederation and the Imperial Navy. She was given the title of Lady by Imperial Decree and put in command of a fleet of 280 junks with 17,000 followers who were now officially part of the Chinese Navy. But she also negotiated amnesty for almost everyone in her confederation who wanted to return to civilian life. She made sure her people wouldn't be executed or punished for their years of piracy. This wasn't a surrender. This was a merger between equals, where she got incredibly favorable terms. Here's what separates Ching Shih from almost every other powerful figure in history. She knew exactly when to walk away. After the treaty was signed, she retired from active piracy, moved to Canton, and became a successful businesswoman running gambling houses and brothels. She used her wealth and connections to thrive in legitimate trade while maintaining her influence throughout southern China. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Surely the emperor tricked her. Once she signed the treaty, she was finished. He could have easily broken the agreement and crushed her. But that's where you're wrong. Let me explain why. First off, I need you to understand that Ching Shih wasn't some low-level crook. She was a leader who commanded respect and loyalty from tens of thousands of people. She wasn't someone the emperor could just brush aside or ignore. Secondly, breaking the treaty would have been disastrous for the emperor. His advisors had carefully negotiated these terms with Ching Shih, and going back on his word would have shattered the credibility of the entire Chinese government. Who knows what other pirates might have taken inspiration from Ching Shih's courage and challenged the emperor's authority if he had broken the treaty. That's why the emperor honored the deal. He understood that he had made a deal with one of the most powerful women in China, and he wasn't going to break that deal. Think about this for a moment. Most pirate leaders ended up executed, betrayed by their own followers, or killed in battle. Most powerful people in general hold on too long and lose everything. But Ching Shih understood something that most never figure out. Knowing when to step down is just as important as knowing how to rise up. She had achieved something no other pirate leader in history had managed. She built an empire, legitimized it through negotiation, and then transitioned successfully back to civilian life. I'll be honest, this part of her story hit me personally. A few years ago, I was running a project that was going incredibly well, but I could see signs that the market was changing. Everything in me wanted to hold on, to ride it out, to squeeze every last bit of success from it. But studying Ching Shih's story made me realize that sometimes the smartest move is to end at your peak rather than wait for the decline. She proved that leadership isn't about being the strongest or most feared person in the room. It's about understanding systems, building alliances, creating structures that work better than what existed before, and knowing how to negotiate from a position of strength. Here's what I think is the most powerful lesson from Ching Shih's story, and it's something that applies whether you're running a business, leading a team, or just trying to navigate your own career. The most powerful person in any situation is often the one who understands the bigger picture and can bring order to chaos. She didn't succeed because she was the best fighter or because she scared people more than anyone else. She succeeded because she was the best strategist and organizer, and because she understood that sustainable power comes from creating systems that work for everyone involved. Look at what she actually did. She took a chaotic and self-destructive industry and turned it into something that was more organized and effective than most legitimate governments of her era. She essentially invented concepts that we now consider fundamental to modern management and governance, but she did it 200 years ago in a context that most people consider just lawless chaos. Today, business schools study her organizational methods. Military historians analyze her strategies. Political scientists examine how she managed to create legitimate authority out of what started as criminal enterprise. The woman who started as a courtesan became one of the most powerful naval commanders in history, controlled more ships than most countries, and then negotiated her way into a comfortable retirement as a successful businesswoman. But here's what really strikes me about her story. She changed what was possible. For women in leadership, for criminal organizations, for anyone who finds themselves in a situation where the existing systems aren't working. If there's one thing I want you to remember from Ching Shih's story, it's this. When you find yourself in chaos, don't just try to survive it. Look for the opportunity to create something better. She knew that true power wasn't just about brute force or stealing riches. It was about creating a new kind of order, one that worked better than what came before. Now, let's fast forward to today. You're faced with a situation where everything seems to be crumbling around you. Maybe your health is in jeopardy. Maybe your relationship is on the brink of collapse. Maybe your finances are teetering on the edge of disaster. At moments like those, most of us retreat into ourselves, focusing solely on fixing the immediate problems in front of us. We try to patch up the cracks in our life without addressing the underlying issues that cause them, and that's where Ching Shih's journey becomes a beacon of hope. Because when everything seemed to be falling apart for her, that's when she took a step back and designed a new system. And that's where the real magic happened. She transitioned from being a mere survivor to becoming a strategist. Just think about it. What if you could navigate the roughest storms of life without losing your footing? What if you could use the tools of strategy to not just weather the crisis, but to emerge stronger on the other side? That's exactly what Ching Shih did. She didn't just react to the chaos. She created a new kind of order. But let's be honest, most of us aren't trained in strategy, especially when it comes to navigating life's challenges. But here's the good news. You don't have to be born with strategic skills. They can be learned. The first step in mastering strategy is to realize that every challenge also presents an opportunity. It's a shift in perspective that can change everything. For example, let's say you lost your job. In a moment of self-pity, you might think, why did this happen to me? But if you adopt a strategic mindset, you ask yourself, how can I use this situation to improve my life? You start thinking about skills you want to learn, industries you want to explore, or even starting your own venture. Suddenly, a setback becomes a springboard for growth. Next, you need to understand the bigger picture. Like Ching Shih, step back and observe the entire landscape. Identify the key factors that influence your situation and understand how they interact. Don't get lost in the weeds of small details. Look at the forest. What are the overarching trends and patterns at play? By zooming out, you gain clarity on your unique position within the bigger picture. Then, it's time to craft your strategy. Decide what role you want to play in the bigger picture. How can you add value or solve problems in a way that sets you apart? What unique combination of skills and resources do you have that others might not? Your strategy should address the key factors you identified earlier and articulate a clear path forward. Finally, execute your strategy with discipline. Put your plan into action and remain adaptable. Be prepared to adjust your approach based on feedback and new information. Don't be afraid to experiment, learn from your mistakes, and celebrate your successes along the way. Remember, strategy isn't just about reacting to what happens. It's about proactively shaping your future. In essence, strategy is the art of turning any situation, no matter how chaotic, into an opportunity for growth and change. In the face of adversity, it becomes the compass guiding you toward a better future. That's why understanding Ching Shih's journey is so crucial. She didn't just survive, she thrived in the midst of chaos. And so can you. It's about adopting her strategic mindset, embracing change, and seizing opportunities. Remember, the world is full of unpredictable moments that catch us off guard, but it's how we respond to these situations that truly defines our success. So the next time you find yourself at a crossroads, look to Ching Shih for inspiration. Step back, analyze the bigger picture, and craft a strategy that will lead you to the shores of your own success. Now, before we wrap up, I want to share something personal with you. In the journey of exploring countless stories for this channel, I've stumbled upon one that has touched me deeply, and I believe it will inspire you too. It's the tale of another historical figure who defied odds, shattered expectations, and left an indelible mark on history. Now I'm curious to hear from you. Which aspects of Ching Shih's story resonated with you the most? And how do you plan to apply the lessons you've learned to your own life and leadership journey? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Additionally, if you've been inspired by this video and want to support us in bringing more historical tales to life, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. Your support means the world to us and fuels our passion for creating more insightful content for you. Thanks for joining me on this incredible journey through history, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Until then, stay curious, keep learning, and remember, as always, thank you for being a part of our story.